just run into some work conflicts or something, but she will be about 20 minutes late. She'll be here, but we have all the other board members. So with that, welcome everybody. If I could get a motion to approve the agenda. Ryan, second. Mary Caitlin. How about I go through these moments of any questions? There's not much to read.
Yes, we only have one microphone, so we'll be bopping back and forth, and I know there's a microphone up there. Again, my name is Brett Provenzano. It's Brett Provenzano. It's good because we're working on some new upgrades in I-12. We're here today to talk about the best thoughts on how to enact a merger between Fairport High School and Minerva DeLand. In 2019, the Board of Education established a resolution after a year-long study on the prospects or the possibilities and the benefits of such merger. As you know, there was a recent capital improvement project. The purpose of that project was, again, to create warm, welcoming, engaging facilities, to create the best possible opportunities for our students and staff when the merger did occur. We are at a place right now in deciding the best ways to continue with this Board of Education priority, and that's why we're looking for our friends, our community members, and our staff to share some of their thoughts on things we should be thinking about when we actually do merge in the very near future. And there will be another meeting February 6th that will be for the board, a meeting in public where we'll be talking very specifically about different options on the prospects or actually the actual merger in the very near future. I'll turn over to Peter Forsgren, and he will share some opening thoughts before we get into the communities.
Indeed, thank you all for being here. Appreciate the attention around this. Overall, what we think is exciting. It's with that I'd like to start off a little bit of background, if you will. This is somewhat personal. I recognize I'm board president, but sometimes I hope you can distinguish between when I'm sometimes trying to speak for myself and not representing all the board. Shortly after within minutes of the capital project, finding out that it had been voted down, and prior to even thinking of it, because I had no feel which way or other, it seemed so quiet out there in the community overall that there wasn't a good feel. I thought about what were the opportunities, and I let the board know that night my intention would be to put a date on that resolution that was passed in 2019. It was the only thing that was lacking, and it was lacking on purpose. And so I feel like I drove a lot of that fervor that went into our business meeting and setting a tone that ultimately ended up conveying a message that was unintentional to our teachers, to our staff, that Minerva DeLand didn't have anything good about it, right? And I regret that. I regret that that was a tone that was said, that was a message that was there. Because of this board, on the years that I've served, I don't know that you can find a more board that's supportive of its teachers and staff generally. And we know of the hard work that is done day in and day out, nights, evenings, weekends, whatever. And so that was unintentional. It wasn't the message. There was excitement by me to say, okay, we studied this for a year. We passed a resolution for various reasons. We looked at all the different aspects and said this was overall best for students, for community, for the district as a whole. That hasn't changed, right, those reasons. And so as Brett pointed out, we're here for the how and when, to start thinking about all those things to make it happen based on what we had planned. Now things have changed, but we still plan to do the merger. So I'm grateful to be here tonight in terms of doing that and to listening. What are those things to be considered? We know a lot of them. Again, because we've been through this, we do know a lot, but I will never say I know everything. I don't think any of us on the board would say we know everything, and so happy to take into those other variables that are out there that need to be considered in order to make that a very successful thing. One thing I do know is we will only be successful if we come along with it together. And so that business meeting where it seemed to created a tone that perhaps drove a wedge, I want to try and get that wedge out of there and bring us all together and do this in a way that is thoughtful, purposeful, and with an objective in mind. To that end, I would like to share a little bit of a story, if you don't mind, and then turn over. We have 9 people so far signed up, and I will list those names. We'd like to keep it to the 3 minutes. We are thinking about being a little bit lenient, but we're not sure. We want this to be interactive. This isn't a business meeting where we do not have the practice of responding, but tonight we're considering that in terms of being interactive. Recognize there will be questions that are unanswerable at this time, right? They just won't be answerable. If there are questions as to why, we'll generally just refer you back to the 2019 year-long study where we have materials, where we went over, cost savings in this and possible revenues and transportation and the studies associated specifically where we got into the details of what's best for students and transitions and all that. So again, we're not here for the why, so we'll probably refer any why questions back to previous documents and meeting minutes. As to how and when, that we can have interactive discussions, but again, we may not know all the answers at this time. And so we'll set a timer and try and be as kind and merciful as we can within that interaction and try and make sure we hear from everybody and able to respond. In terms of my story, I was thinking a little bit about this. It's related to the famous coach Vince Lombardi. I'm not a big NFL fan, so it's perhaps an ironic story. He, in his second year of head coach with the Green Bay Packers, he lost the NFL championship to the Philadelphia Eagles in a score of 17-13. Pretty big accomplishment, though, for him. He wasn't yet as famous as he is now. In terms of, he inherited a team that had a season of 1 win and 10 losses, and maybe there was a tie in there, but it wasn't a great season. And within 2 years, he's at the NFL championship. And I call it that because that was pre-Super Bowl, right? Super Bowl started in 1966. How do you go and start your next season with a loss, right? Well, he picked up the pigskin at the very first practice, and he held it up in front of his players, and he said, and he went back to the fundamentals, he said, "This is a football." First thing he said. I was thinking about that and thought I probably hope my daughter doesn't mind. This is a student. And the Board of Education has in our core belief this opening statement: we believe in educating every child and the whole child. It is our responsibility as the Board of Education to provide the best environment for the children of our district to flourish, learn, grow, and recognize their potential in whatever endeavor they pursue. That's the lens by which we constantly are reminding ourselves of the decisions that we try to make. Doesn't mean we always get it right, doesn't mean we always communicate it well, but that is the lens by which we try to make every single decision. What is best for educating, setting the environment, but educating every child, every single one, each one, the whole child that walks through our doors. That's why we're here tonight, right? We think that this merger is in that best interest of students overall, of the district, and we're looking forward to hearing from everyone. So with that, again, thank you for being here, and we will move into then hearing from those on the list. And first is Mr. Dylan Gillette, who is a district employee. Hopefully that microphone works easily.
I know, I'm kind of loud.
No, most of the district employees probably don't, but.
Sounds good. In light of the 3 minutes, I'm going scripted and will be concise. My hope is that as we develop plans for the consolidation, we also embrace an opportunity to improve the way that we communicate. The teachers of this district are frustrated with leadership. I suspect this frustration, which is built over the last 3 years especially, accounts in large part for the failure of the bond vote. Why are we frustrated? The principal reason is that our mechanisms for feedback and communication, which mostly funnel through FTA leadership, are broken. Now, the challenges presented by the consolidation are complex. There are aspects of it that you understand that I do not. Likewise, there are aspects of daily teaching life in this building that I understand and you do not. This lack of mutual understanding has made us adversaries. It's disappointing to utter aloud, but in January of 2023, the board and the teachers are adversaries. You may not like the characterization, but take it to heart because it is, broadly speaking, accurate. Fairport teachers feel they have been forsaken by union leadership and by district leadership. If you take nothing else away from my comments today, it's important that you recognize this. How do we repair that? It's simple. We need to communicate better. We cannot be an organization that actively and tactically suppresses dissent. Dissent is healthy, it's essential, even if it's inconvenient sometimes. You need to seek the dissent. Give it air. Account for it. Learn from it. I don't know precisely how you fix this rupture, but public discussions like this one are a start. Mr. Provenzano's consistent willingness to stop by and have 15-minute conversations with teachers is another example of what will deliver us from this crisis of estrangement. If we carve out new and better ways to talk and, crucially, to listen, we're going to figure this out. If we keep on with business as usual, if our mindset is we're doing it this way because we said so, then we are proceeding at our own peril. The community has spoken on this issue in the form of a public vote. As disappointing as this may be to the board, the correct response is not, thanks for participating, but since it didn't go the way we wanted, let's move forward with the consolidation more briskly and without the necessary renovations to make it a sensible and better executed transition. That response sounds petulant, it feels punitive, and like it or not, it is dismissive of this community's voice. And I will mention, I appreciate, Mr. Forsman, that you kind of addressed that in your opening remarks, and I have faith that that's something that you've taken to heart. I get the frustration, but I really hope that's not who we are. Take heed of Mr. Provenzano's suggestion. Let's make sure we're taking our time and doing it right. We're collaborating meaningfully. I am neither a malcontent nor a saboteur. I'm a guy who's made Fairport schools his life's work for 23 years, who married the teacher across the hall, who's grateful every day for the amazing teachers at Martha Brown who enriched my daughter's life. I am a bit weary and a bit cynical, but I'll never stop hoping we can do better. I am grateful for the 3 minutes of your time, and I do respect the work that you all do. Thanks so much.
Thank you. No question in there, so not necessarily looking for a response, or?
No, yeah, no questions. Just a hope to communicate.
I appreciate the candid feedback.
Thank you.
I do feel what you mentioned, at least personally, again, speaking for me in this case, and agree there's room for improvement there.
Thank you.
Unless anybody else wants to make a comment, I'll move on, right? Because it.
Thank you.
Josh Leonard, district employee. Sorry, I'll try to give a 30-second warning. I didn't do that, but I have a quick speaker here. Okay.
Thanks for the time. My name is Josh Leonard. I'm a district employee, phys ed, and health teacher, but I'm here a little bit for my 4 children who live in school. And as a phys ed teacher, I think one of the things that I think about a lot is facilities. I know it's a focal point of conversation the board has had. I truthfully look at Minerva as one of the better facilities that we have, and honestly transferred there for the chance to be part of that school. With the second best auditorium, a pool, second best fitness center in the district, fields all over the place, a hiking trail in the back, backing up to waterfront in the Oxbow. I think it's a beautiful location for students and staff. I know that athletics can't cannot do without Minerva, and that we need it for practice, we need it for games. I also think it's a great location for the student body during the day. And my thought process is if Minerva wouldn't be a 9th grade academy, I think it'd be an outstanding middle school for our secondary students. Looking at enrollment in the future and current, I don't know all the numbers, but I think it works, as I've been in the district for 19 years, or could work. But I'd love to know if it's a possibility, if something's been talked about, repurposing Minerva in a different way, other than just shutting down the school and moving shop up to the high school. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's good questions. Perhaps the weakest area, I put that in quotes, in 2019 is the merger was planned for so far out that speculating on what was the use of that building did not occur. It's not that it didn't occur. We did look at some things, but we realized it's so far out that there wasn't a lot of value. That possibly could change. There's been an increased effort, I think in this case what we've heard from the board for UPK, right? Now that's not what you suggested, but I'm just saying that's something that's come to our attention just really recently, right? In the last 3 months, increased attention. It has never been our intention to shut that building. Always remain ownership of it, keep it as a functional building. For some reasons you say we need the auditorium, we think we need the pool. We know the athletic facilities there are needed for athletic program. So it has always been our intention. I've never heard discussion at all on any of our things that we would just shutter the building at all.
No, and I have asked Brett and other people, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Brett, but other people have reached out and asked, why can't we just move JP over to Minerva as well? So I think that when they originally did the study and looked into planning, what Minerva would need to be suitable for a middle school program is not there, and it would need more money to make the changes that would be necessary. So, I mean, obviously,
It was about feasibility,
Right.
right? And, Minerva DeLand was an effective or is an effective high school. If you bring a middle school over there, and I know you know middle schools and cafeterias and the actual number of classrooms, it would take considerable reconstruction for that to occur. And that was one of the charges that came from the District Advisory Council back in 2018, was for us to study the actual potential on taking JP and potentially moving it to Minerva DeLand. And after, careful consideration, after looking at what it would take to transfer JP or Minerva DeLand into a middle school with what the program entails now, it would be not feasible in a fiscal sense.
And that doesn't get us rid of the Church Street building for district office and Farmer Place, both of which,
well, I think people were thinking,
and that you could
oh,
use JP
when we sell the coach house in Humber, that
JP Skills is an elementary school, so our process was that.
Yeah,
It's not more sense for UPK that secondary building in Minerva, that when I came in, housed 630 students.
I think that it was definitely a reasonable thought. It was a reasonable thought, in 2018 when we studied it. We were, always bringing those studies up and talking about, because it does continually come up, making sure that we're double checking and triple checking. But that's, again, a great consideration. We have studied it. We're welcome to continuing to look at, best ways to use our facilities. And that's why we were thinking exactly what you said. We're still using Minerva DeLand. There's many different opportunities from district offices to actually pre-K, UPK is another option that's viable. Also leasing spaces to BOCES, where they can house some of their programming, which they do now, continuing to do that, as you know, from being there. So, thank you.
Brett, and maybe Matt, maybe add this. If you remember, and ballpark is fine, just for those of us who weren't on the board when you did that. When you say it's not feasible economically, do you have any idea, like, how much ballpark, like more than related to the capital campaign we just had? Yeah.
I'm looking at Troy. Troy, if you want to jump up to the microphone, please, from LaBelle Associates. Yep.
Sorry, I did not mean to put you on the spot.
At the time we did the study, I believe we had an enrollment at JP of about 680.
680.
Which was going to require well more classrooms than they currently have at Minerva. Code-wise, the building itself at Minerva was going to take so much more to transition it from ninth grade academy to an elementary building, so there was a cost implication there. So add that to what it would create to put an addition on the building for the additional classrooms that would be needed. It turned out to be not as feasible as the other options that we explored further down.
Thank you. Just, in the spirit of the communication that we're talking about,
well, and I think the code, I don't know that everybody realizes that there are different situations within each building. I definitely did not before I was on the board, so those are things that come up as well.
And I did mention the UPK to say that's realistic, because I don't know what it would take on the construction side to make it a UPK usable building, likely out of cost range as well. I don't know that necessarily, but regardless, we have our opportunity to see what the building can serve, right? But it is our intention to keep it a functional building, those areas especially that you mentioned. It will remain in our control, and it will remain open overall. But as what, we don't yet know that. Any questions or comments around that? Just then third on the list is Mr. Nate Reuter.
Can you guys hear me okay? I just want to make sure. I'm pretty quiet. So first off, I really want to thank you for this time. And I do want to thank you, Peter, for acknowledging Minerva DeLand. That really meant a lot. And I also want to apologize because my questions is about the why. And it's not necessarily asking why in kind of a petulant way, but more of just like, I really want to understand better. And I have been to a lot of meetings, and if it's just referring me to documents, I'm happy to look at the documents. After the capital bond vote failed, it took me a while to kind of reflect on that and to think, like, what is the message that the electorate is sending? And that's always kind of like a messy process, like, because it's kind of unclear. But what really kind of rose up for me out of this was this kind of sense of indifference. And Fairport's not a place of indifference. We're a very passionate community. And what really concerned me was not just that it failed, maybe it could have passed by just a few more votes. But even if it had passed by a few more votes, it would have been small. And I really was wondering, where are the yeses? And one of my concerns with that was, do people really understand the why? And even more than that, are they inspired by the why? So if we're going to move forward with this, I think it's really important that we're excited about this and we're passionate about it, especially when we like head into those moments where it's going to be hard, because this is going to be hard. It's already been hard. So here's some of the questions I have about, and that I'm still struggling to get excited about or passionate about. One, a merger would reduce the number of school transitions made throughout a Fairport student time in the district. Transitions are important. And one of the transitions I think about is most important is that transition from 8th grade to 9th grade. It's a huge, huge jump. There's a lot of research on it. And we have kind of a unique accident in our district where we have a building that's specifically set aside to meet the needs of those 9th grade students as they make that transition. And that would go away. Now, it would eliminate one transition, but I worry about the support and all of the experience that we have that would support students in that transition. I'm asking for a better why for that. A merger would expand access for 9th grade students to the academic and extracurricular programming available at FHS. I'm not sure how this would happen. A 9th grade schedule is already very, very full with very little room for electives. How would being at FHS change this? Students at Minerva have a unique opportunity because the whole building is dedicated to them. They have their own play, yearbook, choir, band, and other extracurricular activities are just for them. As they come up here, they would be mixed in and they would have fewer opportunities. Again, help me understand that and to see that and understand it better and be inspired by it.
So I have 3 minutes.
Oh.
I have a 30-second one.
Okay. A merger would better align curriculum and programming. We have struggled for years as a district to align curriculum. Why would being in a building help with that? A merger would consolidate district buildings in response to declining enrollment. I believe this is in reference to administrative buildings. We are being told that the merger is being done because of students. How does consolidating administrative buildings make this better for students? Having a powerful why will be one important component for a successful merger. Another important aspect is to focus on the people. A project like this will inevitably be focused on facilities and logistics, timelines, brick and mortar, but we need to focus on the people. We need to celebrate Minerva. And I really appreciate what you said earlier, Peter, because I think that was important that we heard that. But again, it still feels like, has it been that bad? I need to close this up, but some quick ideas for suggestions. It would be really helpful to have a transition team. Not just a team for organizing logistics, but like bringing two cultures together. You have two very distinct cultures coming together. It's not just about bricks and mortar. It's about people. How are we going to bring them together in a meaningful way? I think having a transition team will help coordinate some of that. Find ways to celebrate Minerva DeLand. Something maybe as simple as commissioning a book that like really tells the story and history of Minerva DeLand. Create combined work and social time for the high school and Minerva DeLand to get together, to really get to know each other better, to build those relationships, but also to better understand the why. I really want to thank you for all you do, and I mean that. And I apologize for going over time. We're going to need a very compelling why to overcome the challenges that come ahead. Please consider that we are not just merging and moving a building. We are moving people. My concern is that we will move bodies, but not move hearts. And education is about the heart. If we start to lose heart as a district, it inevitably will seep into the classrooms and the student experience. Let's keep working together to make this better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nate. So I just kind of want to jump in because I think my why hits one of your points. And I'm newer to the board, so I wasn't there in the 2019 vote, so I kind of had to catch up on the history and the situation of this. So in my experience as a teacher, in my work, PhD, working with teacher candidates and stuff, we know perhaps the biggest predictor of academic success and future success for a kid is a relationship with an adult in their building, right? That is one of the top ones, and all of us know that as teachers, you feel that. If we can have kids together in the 4 years at the high school, and this is along with all those other reasons you just said, it increases their chance for that meaningful relationship with an adult that can last a longer period of time. So if they have that connection with their 9th grade teacher, they don't lose that when they go on to 10th grade. Or if they're a 9th grader and they didn't get that connection with a 9th grade teacher, maybe it's with a club advisor that works at the high school. Maybe it's a gym teacher that they didn't have access to. It's just more opportunities for that relationship with the trusted adult. So I root all of my other reasons for why I think this is the best move for kids and for all of us in that one. So that's my particular, my heart of my reason.
Acknowledge some of the things that were in there. It gets back to communication, the inspired of the why. I think that in the weeks that have followed the bond vote as well, I've been surprised at the variety of reasons that some people have shared with us of why they may have voted no, right? It didn't have a feel that there was one majority of reason, and I had prepped that in terms of written down some of the things that people said. I mean, I brought up UPK because partly we were told, if you don't consider UPK, we're going to vote no on everything. Budget, this down, right? It's like, oh, that's how important it is to some people. But that's didn't seem to have anything to do, in my opinion, with this vote, but that didn't matter, right? That was one of the reasons we were given. Elementary teachers, are we listening well enough to the needs that they have? Not just the facilities themselves, but the needs of the challenges that students are facing. So there are a variety. I don't know that there's any one, but you brought up the right question. Are we inspired by the why? That gets back to your communication. How are we doing to, why did we think it was a great idea then? We don't think those reasons have changed, but we're obviously not communicating, inspiring, and bringing other people along. So, indeed, areas for that. Appreciate it. Love the ideas. If you have others or that were in there or could send those ideas along, by the way. I didn't get all of them because I'm a slow note taker. Those would be helpful. Oh, Brett got them. I just don't think anybody can read that.
We were lucky we were able to meet with a variety of people, and we did bring up, concerns about, I think you mentioned like the plays and the musicals. From my perspective, that wouldn't have ended, where it won't end with the merge. There would still be those opportunities for a freshman play, a freshman musical, so that people are having those opportunities as students. So, and again, I think communication, that was not, I guess, provided to everyone, so of course that would be a concern. And then just Nate, and again, everybody's schedules are packed, I understand that. My kids are all very different. So their schedules look very different, but I do know sometimes there's students both who might be doing honors and AP classes and students that might be more taking some special education classes, that being at the high school, they would have more access to those classes as well. So not necessarily thinking about electives, because I know that it's very hard to get them all in, and you're not going to be able to add more, but lots of great questions.
I can't say I have anything too much to add, but Nate, I just want, thank you so much. Where are you, Nate? I can't even see you right now. Oh, we went over that way. I want to say thank you for speaking, because I think you are sharing the sentiments of so many of those at Minerva. I am sure there's many of your colleagues, and at the high school as well, who are nodding their heads saying yes. And I think you bring up some incredible points that we can't forget and we need at the forefront of our minds. I have a 9th grader who is able to enjoy all of these amazing experiences at Minerva, and she is able to have a close relationship, positive relationship with the principal and the guidance counselors and all those around, because they do have, there is that wonderful, close-knit relationship. The teachers there love their school, and I think as we move forward, I think it is absolutely incumbent on us to inspire and to cultivate that passion, because like you said, Fairport is a pretty passionate town, and I think that is a bit of our mission, is to make sure that we support you and we support the high school, we support this transition, we support our colleagues, because we know that, like you said, you ended, is that we don't want this to trickle down from the administration, teachers, to our students. That would be the worst. We want our students to thrive. And I think we can take so many lessons of so many great things that are happening at Minerva and make sure that, they still are living really positively. On a total side note, as I said, I am a parent of a 9th grader, and, there are so many great opportunities, like, and this is just a silly little aside, it's part of the reason I'm late is because she was staying after at Minerva for an after-school activity, but then needed to get to the high school, for her sport, and, missed the bus. So, thank God I'm home working part-time, and I'm able to go and bring her from one place to another. And I know that that's such a small piece, but it just reminds me, many parents might not be able to do that. And I wouldn't want her to forsake one activity for another. And again, it just, to me, that merger is, and we have to make sure that we do this, it just allows them to have so many access and not have to say no to student council or helping hands or peer tutoring and indoor track. So just a tiny little example. So, but thank you, Nate. We heard you, and I really appreciate your comments and all those who stood behind you.
Marty and Joyce, please wave your hand or something. I can't see you down there necessarily if you're so. Okay, next on the list we have Lisa Christensen, who resides, a community member at 7 Kirkby Trail.
Sure if I was going to say anything, and I thought there'd be 2 people here, so I don't really have a well-scripted comment out, but I did want to bring up a few things. So I'm a district parent. I have 4 kids in the district, 11th, 9th, 6th, and 4th grade, so this definitely is something that will affect our family. And so I have so many questions about logistics, but those I think are for another day. I think the main thing, though, is we know we have that capital reserve money, and I know to be able to get the state aid on that, we have to go through another proposal and submit all of that, but my question with that is how soon can we do that to get tech classrooms there? Because to me that was the biggest part of the project, that and parking for the teachers, honestly. Like how soon can we get that proposal going so that we could make it as good of a proposal as possible, and a good of a transition as possible. So, and then as far as the actual just comments though, as a parent, I've seen a lot of the reasons. Initially, I wasn't so sure about the merger because of a lot of the reasons they've heard, but then as I've looked into it and talked to my kids about it, I've realized, like when my son was in 9th grade, it was the hybrid year, so that was just a hot mess to begin with, not because of Minerva, just because of, what the state made them do, but he, taking advanced classes, couldn't be bused to the high school, although he normally would have had to, and so he took classes fully remote from the library at Minerva. There were just there weren't as many options for him to be able to get the challenge that he wanted. With my current 9th grader, we have that problem all the time where she wants to stay after school for a science review, but then she's not going to be able to get the bus to track or to Nordic skiing, so I have to go pick her up if she wants to be able to do both. Just, nitpicky things like that, but things that make a big difference. Or I think of my elementary school kid, and all of them actually have done this in elementary school. The first thing they do every day is they go visit their old teachers and they say hi. Like that's just on the way to the classroom. We're gonna go say hi to my favorite 2nd grade teacher, my favorite 3rd grade teacher, and they don't have that opportunity when they switch schools. They just lose that connection with those 9th grade teachers and with the administrators, and I've seen that with my 9th grader. She doesn't have the same investment in her teachers as she would have normally. But I do love a lot of the things about Minerva, and especially the teachers and the staff and the programming. And the thing that's been, I think, bugging me the most is hearing the teacher feedback since the vote, because I honestly feel like teachers aren't a part of it, they're the part of it. I would rather have my kids each in a separate building in their own classroom that has no air conditioning or heating or whatever, with a good teacher that's happy and feels fulfilled and validated, than the most amazing facilities where a teacher feels like they're not being appreciated. And so I think that's a huge course correction, because if there's one single thing we can do to make this a great transition, I think it's to have 100% involvement and buy-in, or as close to it as we can, from teachers. And I think they know a lot more than the rest of us do about what it would take to make that happen. So along with some of the other suggestions I've heard, I think we need at least like a monthly meeting that teachers like this, the teachers are able to come to, maybe having representatives from each building that are able to come and talk about it, or from each department. Maybe during their work days, they don't have to take their personal time to do it, where all would be, and there's some meetings where all would be welcome as well. And that would need to be like leading up to it, and also during and after the transition, so that we can really keep those lines of communication open with teachers. Okay, I'll just finish up real quick. And then, other things like how the teachers that are transitioning, are we giving them time and pay for the time it takes to pack up a classroom, to move things over, to do all that transition? There's all these ways that we can support the teachers. I just really feel like that's got to be, that's just so important, and I feel like that was something that fell through this time and needs to be changed going forward for us to be successful.
So I can, thanks for the questions. I can give the technical answer, and then the more thoughtful answer as we talk about how soon can school districts present a vote back to the public in general. Simply, you guys just have to allot enough time for the board approval of a proposition resolution, which is then has to be published 45 days prior to the vote date. So it's really a tight and small timeline of which schools can present voter proposition referendum back to voters. The thoughtful side of that is really to understand, what pieces within the capital project, which is why we're here today, in terms of listening and understanding. Is it an entire project? Is it portions of a project? Is it smaller pieces altogether, in terms of getting that proper? And that's typically the process any school district will go through upon defeat of a capital project, is understanding what pieces within the project are needed, are wanted. Is the community willing to pay for as we go through those processes? What are the value judgments that we look at as a school district in presenting any future capital projects once one is defeated overall? So hopefully that's kind of the quick summary in terms of the technical side of it, and then trying to be thoughtful in planning with the long-range facilities planning in mind. If you want anything to add?
Apparently I have a lot to say. Yeah, thank you. I was going to address, I think, the heart, because I heard it from Mr. Ruderwright and Mrs. Christensen from you as well. Totally agree. As part of the apology and sincerity is that, not wanting to do things to people that doesn't go well. Janice, you mentioned that, right? So we need to do this together because that's exactly what's made Minerva DeLand so special, is the people there. And I have no doubts that it can be special anywhere if those same people are working for us in whatever building that we have in this district. I'm not worried about that unless it's done in such a way that everybody's offended and we lost heart, and then it's going to be impacted in the classroom. So totally agree with that, and think we need to rethink about how we communicate along those lines. My example, we all had one, right? And thankfully we live in a day and age, but a question was posed recently. If we went along with the timeline I had kind of been suggesting I was going to propose at the last business meeting, which was for 24-25 school year, which is pretty fast, year and a half from now. Someone asked, well, if we squeeze everybody up there, how will students have follow-up opportunities with the teacher? They wouldn't know where to find them, in other words, right? Because the teacher might teach in one classroom, then they're going to be gone, and they couldn't stop by on their way like they do the third grade, which my daughter all did, right? That they had that. But we also live in a great day and age. I did find out, I will leave this person nameless, my son communicated over Christmas with, he's here at the high school now, but he communicated with the 9th grade Minerva DeLand teacher. I was ecstatic to hear that. It was good news because he loved that teacher, loves. Let's not put it in the past tense. And I'm glad that he's able to maintain some type of relationship with that teacher that I think would be even better here if it was continuing on. But regardless, the heart, it's going to have to be central to what we do. It's what made Fairport overall as a district so wonderful. Overall, from K through 12, is because of the heart and soul that our staff put into everything they do. Okay. About halfway through the list, so I think we're okay being somewhat lenient on the time, but please be considered that we still have like 5 other people. Are there more right now? Okay. Jeffrey Cluse, district employee.
Good evening, everybody. I am a district employee. Worked here at Fairport High School for 22 years, as well as a resident for 18 years. I live at 24 Brimfield Circle. My son is in 8th grade at Martha Brown. My daughter is in 5th grade at Brooks Hill. And my wife's a building administrator and worked in the district for 20 years as well. I fully support the board's decision to merge the 9th graders to Fairport High School for all of the same reasons that you guys have put in print and spoken about here tonight. When we talk about opportunities, a very small one that affects me, I do, for 20 years, have been part of advising the Masterminds team, which is an academic challenge bowl type team. We compete against other schools in and around Monroe County. All the schools I compete against have 9th graders participating. We have a JV team and a varsity team. I too have 9th graders, but it takes a lot of effort for me to get the word out, and they have to take the shuttle bus over to join my club. I think I have 4 or 5 9th graders this year, but I would look forward to the opportunity where I could have more 9th graders and have them be part of my club for 4 years. I think I could say the same thing about our competitive math team, which struggles sometimes to get 9th graders to participate. So those are just some small reasons where I could see, opportunities like that being available if 9th graders are here. I did support the capital project. I voted yes, not just because I thought it would ease the merge, but because we all work in 50-plus-year-old buildings that do need to be updated periodically. And I viewed that as an opportunity for those things to happen, especially with the majority of it being with state aid and capital reserve. I felt that it was a good, fair proposal. I do think perhaps the board and district leadership missed opportunity to get that message out to our community and to get more people to understand how this would benefit all of our future students. I have a daughter in 5th grade, all of those students yet to be enrolled in Fairport schools. So part of my question was to ask about a potential for a future, possibly scaled down project, even if it had to focus on, at Fairport High School, our library, our music rooms, our technology rooms, our art classrooms, places that we really haven't addressed in a number of years and can be redesigned and help aid a transition from the merge. I worked here when we had 1,800 students, 17, 18 math teachers sharing the same classrooms we do now. I know that we can fit people here. I do know that during that time, I had professional workspace to work with my colleagues. We've had a math assistance center where we could meet with students individually throughout the day to get them caught up or to answer their questions. So hopefully as we talk about a merge, we can still thoughtfully look at how we can keep those things in place that have worked for many, many years. I know we have additional programming now that takes up some of our footprint, like RTI, ENL, and special ed programming. So I guess my request mainly is that we very thoughtfully bring together the teachers, the administrators, and all the support staff to think about how we can use the physical space properly, maintain professional workspace, make sure that technology, art, music, have appropriate classes that are going to be there for the 9th graders that take so many of those courses. Do we have enough places here to help them with those courses that they'd still be taking? But in general, I appreciate all that you do, and I look forward to seeing where this takes us. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. But one part of the disappointment was simply our aging facilities. If there wasn't even a merger in consideration, the tech wing, the music and arts classrooms, they need some serious love and care. And so that in and of itself was a disappointment, right? Just that we won't be able to, or it delays it at least. It's not that we won't, because you've asked a question, we're looking into it. I'm not necessarily a fan myself of, some have suggested just put it back out there. We think we can muster the yeses this time to show up. I'm not a fan of you keep revoting until you get the results you want, right? If we had the opportunity. What's that? That's not democracy. We had the opportunity, so I'm not a fan of that. So we'll relook at it. And yes, the question's been asked now at least twice. You know, when can we get back out there? Will it be scaled down? Will it be different? Yes, there's the things we had to listen to. Again, we heard them before. We didn't prioritize them as a board. I could like, AKA elementary potentially, right? So we have to say, okay, you know, reprioritize things. So that's definitely in the mix about, because regardless, our buildings need care, right? Regardless, that's the case. And on top of that, though, we have that merger that's out there. Anybody else?
I think one thing that keeps coming up for me tonight, and then also all the feedback we've gotten from the vote, is the communication aspect. And I feel like that is really going to be that heart for me of what I'm looking for going forward, is the conversations are stronger and more coherent, and you think you're talking to, you know, and getting that feedback. And I don't think we did. I think I put it on myself. I missed the mark, and I know a lot of us feel that way, and that's going to have to be different.
Okay. Next we have Stephanie Moretter, district employee.
Hello. My name is Stephanie Moretter, and I'm a Red Raider through and through. I'm a proud Fairport grad, a lifelong resident, and the parent of a current Northside hero, as well as a veteran English teacher serving our 9th graders at Minerva DeLand, though I was also taught at FHS and Martha Brown. I know our community and the expectations that other parents like me have for the high quality of education that our schools provide, which the Board of Ed is charged with ensuring. I know this district, which strives to prioritize student needs and to foster caring and respectful environments where deep connections between students and educators thrive. And I know our students and their needs as they progress through their secondary education. Finally, I know what makes Minerva DeLand uniquely equipped to provide that supportive experience. What I don't know tonight is why the board is so set on pursuing a course of action that threatens the core principles by which the district has always defined itself. I don't know why the board would want to eliminate the opportunity for the 9th grade class, divided throughout middle school, to unite as one before entering an already overpopulated and intimidating building. I don't know why they would want to dismantle a system that effectively bridges the gap between the middle school and high school experiences. Our nurturing middle school educators gently guide our budding learners using a team approach that caters to individual needs. And at Fairport High School, our faculty excels at honing skills and delivering content in a manner that turns our students into independent thinkers, scholar athletes, and citizens prepared to engage in society and embark upon life's biggest transition into adulthood. What we do at Minerva DeLand serves a very important function in transitioning our students between the two distinct worlds of middle school and high school. In September, we embrace our incoming 14-year-olds and spend the year gradually arming them with the skills to become strong self-advocates, more able to independently navigate the escalating academic challenges of FHS. Minerva DeLand is a special place where the close communication among a unified and dedicated staff benefits the overall culture of the building and the distinctive needs of its students. Finally, I don't know why the board is so rashly pushing its agenda, ignoring the community's voice expressed by the defeated bond vote, and expecting our superintendent to accelerate the timeline for this change with only 1 month of planning. The idea of approving this merger without what the board itself deemed as the appropriate and necessary funding to accommodate nearly 500 additional students and staff within FHS, while so many vital questions remain unanswered, seems a bit irresponsible. I challenge the board to prove to the district stakeholders that the 9th graders will have access to more elective offerings as a result of this change. Many of us teachers are scratching our heads as we try to fathom how even our current programming can possibly still be delivered within the spatial limitations of FHS. How many honors or AP classes may be cut? How much larger will our average class sizes grow to cram in all of the required courses and students? How will we account for the increased parking and traffic demands in an already overflowing lot and perilously jammed morning commute? Ultimately, the answers to these questions will determine the quality of education that my daughter will receive in this district. I ask the board forward to avoid rushing into a decision proposed before the tremendous upheaval of the pandemic with all of its educational ramifications without accounting for the above stated issues and many more. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could make a religious analogy once, I hope you don't mind, being a Christian, right? I sometime got a question like the prophet of God, who does he represent? Does he face the people and represent God, or does he face God and represent the people? And I think I hope he doesn't mind being compared to a prophet or whatever, put Mr. Provenzano in that kind of position, right? When he faces the board, is he representing the staff, or if he's facing the staff, is he representing the board? And you have a good representative who, if I can use the words, tried to save me from myself in terms of the zeal with which I went into that meeting. So no final decision has been made, about the win, right? I did express what my opinion was. It has softened somewhat in terms of the feedback that I've received. So there is nothing yet hard stone for anybody yet about the win. Right, that's partly why the purpose of this meeting and future meetings and things to look at, because you ask a lot of good questions about how do we make it a good experience. That becomes the number one, right, criteria, I think, overall. It must be a good experience for everybody. Yes, the students are our fundamental, right? This is a student idea, but our staff, we're a people organization. The board has always felt that. We want to support our staff in every way possible. The one thing, I hope it doesn't come off, I'll take a chance here, Stephanie, with some of the things you said. Will have a hard time being convinced that all the wonderful things that everybody does in Minerva DeLand wouldn't be equally wonderful here, right? I would struggle to think that that level of love would not be expressed here in the same building. So I'm not convinced that it's the brick and mortar necessarily that makes it such a special place, but it's the people.
And I agree with that, but you have to recognize that the way that we've been sort of treated in all of this, and it doesn't disappear overnight, is something that, like it or not, trickles down to the students at some point.
Yes.
And the demands that are being placed on teachers are just increasing constantly. This one more thing and this one more way in which we feel like our voices have not been heard, it just adds to that, as Dylan spoke to earlier, level of frustration.
So hearing that, right, and so can agree, recognize that an apology is only the first step, it then has to be followed up by actions, right, from my part as well. So appreciate, again, the candor and the expressing that you feel. It's, some of the things aren't intentional, but it doesn't matter if they're intentional or not. That was a result, and so we're here to listen and take notes, and to make a good decision, communicate better, all the above. I keep with my own frustration that we expressed during campaigning 2.5 years, about 2 years ago. In this day of communication, it is hard to do, right? In all the different ways that we can communicate, it's hard to do. And oddly enough, we can't perfect it either, right? I don't know how to get word out sufficiently about all the different things that are going on, but we'll work on it. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Next, we have James Goosey, district employee.
All right, first, I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to all of you today. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the work that you guys do and how difficult it's been over the past few years. So thank you for everything you do for the Fairport community overall. For those of you that don't know me, my name is James Goosey. I spent 28 years of my 41 here in Fairport schools. I'm a K-12 Fairport grad, and this is my 16th year teaching here in Fairport. I'm very proud to call myself a Fairport alumni. And I stand here because of that pride. I feel compelled to let you hear what I'm hearing from my colleagues, from the members in the community that are still asking the why. I know you want to talk about the how and the when, and this gets into the communication piece, but there's still that why out there from a great majority, not only of my colleagues, but also the members in the community, of which I exist. So 3 minutes is not enough time, and again, I'm going to focus more on the why. These are questions that I have and I keep hearing from our community. So please provide me and the community with proof that the transition between JP and Martha Brown to Minerva to FHS is actually detrimental to Fairport students. I understand there are a number of research articles and pieces out there for other places. What does it mean for Fairport? Do we have proof that that's detrimental to our kids in Fairport? We have award-winning schools, send kids off to the wider world ready for work, college, army, military, trade school, whatever it might be. I kept hearing this is what's best for kids. What evidence do we have that the merger will improve student achievement and experience? As one person that went through, like, I know that experience. That experience is important. Those connections are important. So yes, I'm sure we could have those connections here, but if I have 22 kids in my class at Minerva and I have 30 kids here, my ability to connect to more of those kids is less.
Yeah, why do you think the class sizes are going to go up?
That's, well, I get to it as, I'm talking space.
I know, it's just.
For the space option. And so, again, without adding those classrooms, if we brought kids up, we could make Global 10 and Global 10, take two classes and put them together. I just don't see it being able to be done amongst Global 9 and Global 10. You can't merge those two classes. So with the reduced space, I don't see
Well,
there being any. Yeah, please.
Our goal is how can we figure out the space issue so that it's not a concern moving forward.
Sure, and I think,
So,
again,
I just keep hearing that and I keep thinking, that's not our goal. Our goal is not to pack as many kids into a classroom as possible.
And I appreciate that, but I guess my point is, that's what again, the why, this
Right,
is what
and
the
you
community
probably-
is saying is the why, and this is the perception, and again, because of the communication or any of those other pieces, all right, it's not, that's just what I'm hearing, and it is a concern, right? How do we develop those strong connections if that's the case? We know higher class size is difficult.
Yep.
Okay, please provide empirical evidence that Fairport community wants this merger to take place. As much as I have heard that this bond vote was not a referendum on the merger, I only hear that from the people sitting at this table and a very few numbers of voters. Overwhelmingly, I've heard from the community members that they approach this bond vote as just that, a question of do we bring Minerva, that's my time, sorry, to FHS. The community voted no, and as you just said, if we're just gonna push it through, is that really democracy? Finally, the tax on the resource, our most important resource, our people, our kids, our teachers. If you force the merger through without the support of the community and the employees, I worry about my colleagues and their well-being. And that I will turn into how I worry about our kids and how that will impact our children and the students. I've heard a member on this board come out and say no jobs will be lost, and while I would love that to be that optimistic, the fact is we don't know that. How do we bring in the best and the brightest new teachers if they know there's an opportunity that they're gonna get cut? How do we provide that space, that one-on-one, so we can work that magic that we have if there's not a lot of space? And again, I know that we've talked about this, but these are the questions I hear from people still. These are questions I have. I love my kids at Minerva DeLand. Love working with them. I love providing them with a safe place. I am lucky enough to have one in the audience here today. And the fact that I won't have that space to provide them with a safe place makes me very nervous. So in summary, I asked that instead of going full steam ahead, or what I said at the last board meeting, that you, the Board of Ed, will make it happen. Take a step back. In teacher terms, give us some wait time. Mr. Provenzano's asked for that. Give people the time to really process what the merger would mean for all the stakeholders. Since that's over my time, I'm going to let it go. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you for speaking.
Yeah, you could go over because I interrupted you.
That's not the timer when she asked a question.
I won't take too long to go through all the analysis that I've done 8 times, and I wouldn't expect anybody to know it the way that I do, but the concept of merging classes and pushing class sizes higher has nothing to do with the analysis that is required to figure out whether we have rooms open or not. And so there'll be a time, and I know that Brett wants to work through this in a methodical way. I don't think it was probably prudent prior to understanding like what our path was to have too many people doing this work. It's a little intensive, but taking the master schedule from Fairport High School and the master schedule from Minerva DeLand and putting them together, that's the process. We have this many rooms available for art, this many rooms available for business, English, all the way through. And understanding where we put those without making any adjustments to the master schedule, not moving a class, not changing class sizes, literally today's as is at Fairport High School and today's as is at Minerva DeLand. That is the best analysis that we can provide to understand what the space implications are. Does that make sense? Okay? And I think that some of your answers, some of the questions that people would have would make sense being able to look at in their microcosm, in your case, social studies or RTI lab, et cetera, depending on where you are right now, is taking a look at that. How does that fit for me? If I come up to Fairport High School, am I teaching in 5 classrooms, right? So I've done that analysis 8 times to see if it works. As far back as 5 years ago when we were doing feasibility studies to understand that. And the recommendations that I made, as somebody had referred to earlier in terms of the additional classrooms, it was always with the mindset that Fairport High School needed these upgrades no matter what happened. Don and I facilitated a group of 60-plus people in the DAC, and that was always the message. This had to happen no matter what. But I can guarantee you, again, going back to your question, none of it ever had the parameters of merging classes and making things fit that way. It was simply an as-is versus as-is. If anything, what I've shared with Brett over time and the board is that it should improve because our class sizes are continuing to fall slightly. Not like they were, it wasn't precipitous. Like my first year we had 568 grads. Last year we had roughly 430, okay? So that as is the best analysis we can provide. There's no loss, and to your point about jobs, which I think is an important one, because I think that was some of the misinformation, unfortunately, that was out there, is this assumption that people were losing jobs in the process. It's never been about that. Everything that's being taught at Minerva DeLand needs to be taught at Fairport High School. That doesn't change. The only thing that might change, I will tell you the positive, is we might have supervision in the hallways. And because you know, anybody that's had any familiarity with our schedule would understand this, all of the traveling teachers, no administrative assignment, no in lieu of study hall. Anybody that, the extra lead teacher piece of things, that takes away from that. If anything, there might be proper level of supervision in both buildings, which hurt from the traveling teacher component of things. So again, if there are 10 sections of 9th grade Global 1, they need to exist here too. That's still 2 FTE. That doesn't change anything. No, there's been no pressure from the board to say we're going to change class sizes. Our understanding was that the same parameters that we've always used hold true, especially in science, which you make a concerted effort to be around 24 all the time, right? These are the rules that I follow. When it comes to honors classes, we try to protect co-taught classes, and we push the level of honors classes, not because we're out of space, James, but because we know that some of our students sometimes come down from those honors classes and they need a space to go. These are the rules that I'm given when I do that analysis, not getting rid of teachers, not pushing sections together. That's never been part of this process. So when I say it works, and I give them the honest feedback about the rooms and what's going to require, they've been given all of that information, and that's why they're surprised to hear that. There is no loss of FTE. There is no loss. There's no pushing classes together to 30. That's never going to happen. I wouldn't, as a principal, ever support that.
We wouldn't either.
Well, it might be obvious that this is the first time many of you are hearing it, even though we took it as a given, right?
So I think that's the one piece that keeps resonating is this idea of communication. And
I'm just trying to think of and again, the FTEs, I don't want to make this a big deal, but again, we go from lead teacher, we have a lead teacher in social studies at Minerva, and we have a lead teacher, and again, I'm just thinking through these things.
So in your contract, there is a MOA that was agreed upon in 2018 that highlighted specifically what would occur if and when a transition will happen. And in there, it speaks about this idea of collaboration. It speaks about the idea of, an advisement group forming and talking about the X's and O's of all these great questions that have come up. And, that would definitely enhance the communication. It would definitely speak to, these are all reasonable, thoughtful questions that need to take place. So that's inherently built into the process. We'll obviously do a better job of communicating it as we move along. But that's the one piece that, I'm taking away when I'm visiting, and I'm fortunate enough to talk to teachers, is how do we, answer these very appropriate questions in a way that's thoughtful, in a way that unites us, in a way that builds understanding, and in a way that builds the level of soulfulness that we're so unique, that's so unique to our school community. So, a major takeaway.
Am I allowed to ask a follow-up question of Mr. Clark? So, just to make sure I got it right. So, first question, in your feasibility studies, if you expect that you'd be able to do the merger without significantly increasing class sizes or decreasing class offerings. That was that's my first question. My second question, do you see where it would be increasing the number of electives 9th graders would have available to them based on your study?
I'm trying to just take this. So, but the question is, can you speak a little bit more about the impact on class sizes and the impact on the electives and opportunities?
So the first answer, I think, was just yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
The second question was in terms of access for ninth grade students. I think until recently, a good example of that would be students that struggle in ninth grade. Don Monticelli and any of the teachers in my ninth grade can share with you, like, the likelihood of a student dropping out that's expressing, school avoidance or some of those issues in ninth grade is pivotal to get to that student at that time. One of the things we've dealt with for years, and I know that it's changed in the last 2 years because we've really, again, because of the direction of the board and Brett and their leadership, having a full-fledged alt-ed program for students that are potential dropouts. That's one off the top of my mind that I know that program, as it exists down there, it's still a little alt-ed light. They're trying as much as they can to, with the resources that they have, to put those programs in place. But if we get students that come out of ninth grade and don't have any credits, don't have 2 credits, we're in credit recovery. And that's the difference between your middle school experience and your high school experience. You're on a clock and trying to graduate with your cohort and things like that. One of my beliefs in terms of that piece of coming together in the ninth graders here is that would be a more robust system to support those students. It's not that it's not happening. It is of late, the last 2 years or so. But I think we can continue to do better with that. We've always had issues with students that have traveled back and forth for different reasons too, because they're credit deficient or because they were advanced. In order for any student to make that decision happen, they have to give up a period of the day to travel. That's a concern that I have. Curriculum-wise, as someone that taught in a ninth grade experience, 9 through 12, for 17 years, I see that the issues of teaching one subject, and I taught ninth grade global history for 7 years straight to start my career, but having the opportunity to teach at other ends of the spectrum, I think also benefits the entire department and the student experience. To have ninth grade students and 12th grade students, I feel like those conversations departmentally, understanding when I'm teaching both Global 1 and Global 2 and having the responsibility of the curriculum and the assessment, there's a benefit to that as well. In terms of just general access, I think somebody made a point to say that the ninth grade schedule is pretty jammed, and that is absolutely true. But there are still different opportunities that we have here that they're not able to offer at the ninth grade building. And it's not for anything that they've done, it's just a limit in terms of the scope of the program. We have 90-something electives at the high school. And again, certainly we try to have as many students as we can. For example, the ninth grade building, and I worked there for 3 years as well, so I know this well. Take studio and art, for example. But it's not always a fit, and there are other opportunities that we can get after those graduation requirements here. So yes, I believe there's increased access as well.
So I think the best point that I continue to take away is that these are opportunities to answer these questions in forums like this, advisory, continuing to get a heartbeat of our community, to let them see and hear, these are the different possibilities, putting a word picture to what Mr. Clark was just speaking to, that speaks to the process, the advantages of, again, this board, they're the strongest advocates I know, and for certain, they have not said, hey, let's minimize programming, right? And I think that would be, counterintuitive to what this board has always stood for. Again, it's about increasing opportunities, but to what Mr. Goosey was saying, what Mr. Clark is saying, we need to do a better job of putting a word picture to it, and I think Mr. Gillette was referring to that as well. Thank you.
Next we have Mr. William Urban, residing at 3 Bittersweet.
Hello, my name is Dr. William J. Urban. I reside, as was just said, 3 Bittersweet Road, Fairport. I moved to Fairport in 1974, and I attended kindergarten at Jefferson Ave. I went on to West Ave, which was my favorite, Martha Brown, and then I went on to McQuaid Jesuit. Later, I attended a number of graduate programs, both in Canada as well as the States, where I worked as a professor for a number of years at the University of Toronto, York University, and some various smaller colleges in Ontario. I stand here, however, today not as an educator, but as a taxpayer. A taxpayer who does not want his taxes increased even by a single dollar. Now, a couple of my degrees are in economics. I taught economics to first-year students. I taught an MBA class at U of T. So I know a little something about the economy, and I can assure you that the bad economic times that we're all starting to face is just getting started. So if you want to do this project, please find the money internally within your administration. Students need to be taught, not administered. Teach them how to think, not what to think. I'm asking you to cut your administration. Don't increase our taxes. Taxes that I'll remind you from which we fund your salaries. In a very real sense, we are your boss. So please listen to us. I'll make a promise to you. If you do come back with just a single dollar of increased taxes per year, let alone the 59 that was proposed before, I will mobilize my fellow taxpayers to vote it down as it was before. I've never been very political, but when it comes to my money, I get political. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Again, in compiling the reasons we heard, that was one of them, and especially with the economic situation of the last year, right? It really changed significantly for many people, especially those on fixed income and others. We heard that loud and clear as well as one of the reasons people voted no. Oops. Not very loud. Okay. Next, we have Tammy Wells at 17 Havenwood, is it?
So I'm going to have my daughter take over to speak. Her name is
Olive, please.
Hi. Can you guys hear me okay?
I think so.
Okay. So I'm a ninth grade at Minerva DeLand, and I don't know the full thing because I'm a ninth grader and I don't get informed because I'm not a staff member. But I have a couple questions, but a couple of them are already answered. One of my questions is, well, not really a question, more so a concern. With the transition from 8th to 9th, I think that if you were to merge Minerva with Fairport High School, it would lose connections with the class, just in general, a singular class, because with the transition from 8th to 9th, it really helps becoming more connected with your class because you have two different middle schools going as one. And I think that if you were to just have, 8th grade, not even having the full class together yet, going into a whole high school with different grades would be overwhelming, because I remember from 5th to 6th grade it was overwhelming because there were different classes, but it was middle school. And I was anxious in 5th grade, but in 8th grade I felt more calm because it was just one grade and I got to know them, and it's a lot more easier to get to know your class. That way when you were, and I can't say knowing transitioning from 9th to 10th because I haven't done that yet, but I feel as though it'd be a lot smoother of a transition to going into the high school because you know your class and you know who's in it and you have familiar faces, because if you were just to go directly into the high school, you wouldn't really know the rest of your class. So my concern is what are you guys going to do about being able to have connections with your class, I guess, if that makes sense. That's all I have. I just wanted to thank you guys for everything you do. I do go to board meetings when I can, and I just want to thank you guys for everything you do. But yeah.
And you like AC/DC. That is so cool. I don't mean, may I? I'm going to invite Mr. Clark back to the microphone, but in a really high level. You could still stay here because if you want to have dialogue, you could, talk.
Wherever you're most comfortable.
I would say that's an ongoing conversation. Mr. Clark, every time I see him, right, we speak to what type of home are you going to create for our students transitioning, because those transitions are very important. Though we don't have like specific details today, one of the priorities would be to bring in wonderfully spoken, articulate students like yourself to speak about what do we need to make sure that there's an 8th to 9th grade transition, which we know is very critical. How do we make you feel comfortable? How do you make you feel safe? How do we make you feel connected and engaged in your environment? Mr. Clark, I know can just expound on that a little bit, and if you have any questions, by all means, we want to address that to the best of our ability today, knowing that we're going to have to put some action behind it as we move along. Mr. Clark? Thanks.
Help me move my legs. I think that what you're asking is really about the intentional focus that it requires to transition 9th grade students in general. Again, having taught 9th graders most of my 17 years, having the opportunity to work at Minerva DeLand as an administrator when I got started, I think what you're talking about is just having a plan to be very intentional about the way that they enter into the building. And having that challenge of coalescing Martha Brown and JP kids and kind of shedding those labels that they come into 9th grade with. In many regards, being in a high school environment with 9 through 12 students helps with that in terms of the modeling behavior and things like that. Most schools within the county have specific programs like LINK, where they adopt, sort of an older buddy system, that they participate in. I have a 9th grade student right now who attends another local high school, and he's linked up with a senior, and that's a part of the process. So I think it starts with, as an administrative team and a leadership team within the teachers, getting together and getting on the same page as to having them understand how do they, I've always said this in terms of like my introduction to the 10th graders here, how the challenge of Fairport High School is making a place so big feel small. That's what makes Fairport special, honestly. And so it's not losing sight of that challenge, involving all of these people, and just having a lot of intention about what we do. Okay?
I would just like to add a little bit to that. We have amazing teachers, educators alike sitting right in this room. That's one of the ways that they shine. And we have a Board of Education, and I cannot speak for them because they're right here especially, but they're the strongest advocates. I believe one of the biggest charges to me would be to make sure that our students are safe, are comfortable, that they have spaces, and then we invest resources to make sure that the transition is seamless, that the transition produces opportunities for students to connect to individuals, to peers in a very safe, methodical way. And I keep reinforcing this because it's so important. I think that is a very important question, is the comfort and safety and welfare and wellness and the access to the opportunities that needs to be shared very thoughtfully so people feel comfortable and confident. If there's any board member who wants to speak to that, I'd be happy to, because I think it comes better from them for sure. It's a live one.
First of all, thank you so much for speaking. I think in addition to the teacher's voice, I think the student voice is going to have to be a paramount part of the discussion, because it is, of course, going to affect you very much. And, I think regardless, as you were speaking, and as Bob was speaking, I was thinking that regardless of whether it's transitioning to Minerva DeLand or the high school, we do need to think about how do we bring these two middle schools together, whether it's at a 9th grade building or a 9-12 building. And, as Bob said, I think there are such great programs where you can, connect seniors with freshmen, 11th graders with 9th graders, 12th graders with 9th graders. But what can we do to connect, 8th grade Martha Brown students with 8th grade Joanna Perrin students before they come into the high school? So that, yes, again, we're all parents. I think we all had children who faced that transition. I'm sure we all had children who were like, what are those JP kids like? What are those Martha Brown kids like? What? You will.
Oh, I will.
You will. Yeah, there's time. And that's a great anxiety. And we don't need to give our 9th graders any more anxiety or 8th graders any more anxiety. So I think it's a good reminder of how can we build that connection between our two middle schools, and I think as long as we keep our students at the forefront of that conversation and an integral part of it, and I imagine, you would be too, and I can imagine you'd be a great, big brother or big sister, to those incoming students. But Thank you so much. Yeah, I know you just signed you up, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Olive.
Did anybody else want to comment? Murder? No? I'm going to hand it over to Pete because I think we're going to, if we do have time, if there's other people that are wanting to come up.
As everybody, we were committed to 6:30, and 6:30 is still a short meeting for us. So, although we have a hard stop, as I understand it, for some people who do need to go, but if you want to continue dialogue, in other words, we don't have anybody else on the list, but we're willing to stay here and continue to talk or whatever, or we can go home and have dinner.
I know, I was going to say one more thing before if there isn't anybody interested, I just did want to say, and I mentioned this to some of the Minerva teachers, that my two kids actually went through Minerva during COVID. One was at the end, one was at the beginning. They had an amazing experience. It was not because of the physical location, it was because of the teachers. So in my mind, and I should have realized this ahead of time, when we were looking at this, talking about the capital improvement project, I think my interpretation was that, this was the decision for the merge was made in 2018-19. There was a study that was done, and that everybody was on the same page. Clearly, that is not the case. And again, my feeling was it's the teachers, not the physical location. So yes, this will be wonderful. We'll have all those wonderful teachers over at the high school. There would not be people losing jobs left and right. So the vote definitely was impactful, I think, on all of us. We are taking a step back. We're looking at what we can do to move forward in a positive manner in terms of having more people maybe at the table for suggestions, trying to stay positive, and ironically, I do training. Today I showed a video and it was called Know Your Why, and that came up a lot today. So if you have time, check out Michael Jordan Jr., not the basketball player, but he does this comedy sketch on knowing your why. And I fully agree that we need to really win the hearts and passion of our community, not just the parents, but obviously our staff and teachers too. Check out the video. I found it kind of funny that that was brought up because that's huge. You have to know why you're doing something to be full in and passionate about it, and I will pass it on.
And I think I would just second that sentiment. Being newer, I thought this was kind of the community's understanding of it, and I apologize that I didn't realize this before. And Brian and I were just saying, I wish we had had this dialogue before. I just didn't realize, and maybe some of us didn't realize that sentiment was there. And I know our amazing Minerva teachers are going to come in to the high school and work their magic here alongside the high school teachers. I have not a doubt in my mind that it's the people, not the building. But just huge thank you. I mean, it's a Monday night. Not everybody usually comes to our workshops, so I'm just very appreciative you're here.
Mary Caitlin stole the mic from me. First of all, I do want to say an apology. I know that at the last board meeting, similar to Peter's apology earlier, which is very eloquent, I made a comment somewhere along the lines of this merger is happening, and my idea was to be very clear of the board's direction. I try to be clear in the communication and avoid kind of wishy-washiness or jargon or openings, and I hit the wrong tone on that one as well. So I apologize for the tone of that. It was unintentional, but again, apologies. It was not my intention to demean Minerva DeLand, simply to be clear, here we are. I do wish we had had this conversation before the vote as well, but hindsight is 20/20, and we've talked a lot about communication, and boy, do I think a lot about communication in my day job. And I think that's, please know that as a board, we have heard that this is what we've been talking about for the past 3 weeks. We have heard the Minerva teachers, we've heard the high school teachers, we've heard the community loud and clear that we need to communicate better, on all channels, publicly, internally, among us, all of that. I would love the opportunity to meet as board members or a board with teachers from Minerva at the high school, with Mr. Provenzano here or something like that, for that communication. I think this has been wonderful, and I think meeting with teachers
is something that we should be doing, meeting with all of our teachers, but especially we're here for this issue. So I think that would be useful, so that we can hear you guys in a relaxed but formal setting. So you're talking to the board, we're talking to you, and not strictly, the 2 minutes that we pop into your classroom on a visit. I know that we don't have the time to do that. Olive, to your point, I'm not going to speak for the whole board, but I will speak for me, that making sure ninth graders are comfortable and get the support they need on the transition is one of the top priorities we have in this transition. I think we're going to insist on that. And whatever that looks like, again, there's a lot, that's logistics, and we'll work on that. And I got faith in our administrators to do that, but I think that matters to us. That matters a lot to us, and we're not going to let that part fall away. Yeah, that's it. But I'm sorry, I lost the last point. I got there. So again, to echo what Mary Caitlin said, thank you for being here, for your criticism, for your critique of us, for your communication. I think all of us have taken hits over the last 3 years as Board of Education members and Board of Education candidates. And it can be a lot. No, I know you haven't, but some of us have. But what I've always said, and Mary Caitlin and I have had long conversations about this, we will talk with anybody who wants to talk with us in good faith. And everybody in this room is here talking with us in good faith, and I cannot tell you how much we appreciate that. And I think that this is the start. This is not the end. This is the start of conversations that, yes, should have been happening all along, but we're grateful that you're all here. We're listening, and we look forward to keeping this going. Okay, now I'm really done.
I just have a few comments because I came here to listen. I took plenty of notes, and I'm very grateful for the comments and the questions and your time. I just want to say that obviously I'm a strong supporter of public education. I've been in this board position 21 years, and for no pay. For the person who thinks we get paid, we do not. And however, that gentleman did hit on something I've heard from the community. I think we have to be careful about saying this was a referendum on the move, or the community has spoken, or whatever. I hear from senior citizens. Given my age, it's different than most of you in the room, so people come to me with this. They don't want their taxes to go up. They didn't care about a move. They may not have even understood there was going to be a move. They're just tired of their taxes going up. Personally, I disagree with them respectfully, because I have voted for every budget, every referendum. I live a modest life on a modest income, but I believe in public education, and you can continue to raise my taxes. I will vote yes, because I want our schools, our teachers, our administrators to have what they need. But not everyone in this community agrees with that. And so we have to realize that a lot of those no votes were just about dollars. They were not about a move. They were not about Minerva or the high school or anything but their budgets. And I understand that, because I have to budget tightly at my age. I just happen to believe in public ed so strongly, I will pay and pay and pay what I need to. But we do need to think about everyone in the community, not just parents and teachers. There is a big voting contingent, and a large group of our town are senior citizens, and they see things in a different light. Sometimes, many support it and have said to me, keep it going. We need our schools to be good. We need our teachers to be happy, all of that. I'm certainly not labeling all senior citizens as worried about their taxes more than their schools, but many have that true worry, and it's a real one for them.
As the last one to speak, I just want to say thank you for your time and for all of your input. I think it's so important to remember what we always say: we are family. And, we can have troubles inside the family of misunderstanding one another, but events like this help us to hear one another in a better way, so I'm really appreciative of that. Some people seem to refer to the fact that there's division between Brett and the board. I would just want to say that is absolutely not true. We listen to each other all the time and always come to consensus on whatever move that we make. So that's very important. I think that we all consider our voices important, all of you here, all of us here at the table as well, and that we work together as family. In the last speaker, I mean, that's pretty sobering, but as Joyce said, that's a reality in the community. If you've come or watched board meetings over the past year or so, you've heard a lot of negativity about public education, a lot of attempts to divide and to cause difficulties with our public education system. All the more reason that we have to stand strong as Fairport family. And I know we'll all stand together and do that, so thanks for coming and sharing with us.
I want to say before I hand it over to Peter for closing thoughts, thank you. Thank you for coming together and expressing your thoughts. Families come together, and we listen, we learn, we lean on each other. I think Marty said it perfectly as well. This was a call for us to unite, to develop more understanding. No more from my end, hey, this is what we tried to say, because it didn't work, right? And for a good reason. And I think that it's important that we take all the good questions, all the collaboration, and put it into a manageable plan so we can get a spirit, so we can have a little soul to this project. And no one felt it more than myself when I was sitting, and there was 10 presentations, and I just didn't have a pulse. And it all made sense on that night on why there wasn't a pulse. And I'm okay with that, actually. I'm okay with people wanting to come together. I will serve the board's vision and mission. It's inspiring. I will serve as your superintendent to bring forth the very best for our students, for our staff, and for our community. I'm proud to work with this board. They do listen. They do lean on each other. We have all sorts of wisdom up here, and I'm proud to serve their vision. With that, I know that February 6th is our next public meeting where we will be talking more about this in public. It will just be a board workshop in public. We'll be talking about some potential options and next steps. So for our board meeting, I think that's February 17th, I want to say. Excuse me. Oh, that's what a bad day to have. Oh my God. February 14th. Lots of love. But on February 14th, we'll have some clarity as well. So the 6th will be an opportunity to listen to some of the options and some of our analysis that we were given the grace and time to do so. And then on the 14th, hopefully the board has enough information to make an informed decision on our next steps. I think Lisa Christensen has a question, Peter. I will let Mr. Forsgren or Erica Bells Pacer, yes, speak to the details, because it is a board.
Yeah, sure. So as of now, the meeting on February 6th would be at the Transportation Department where we typically have it. I think if we get a feeling that there will be more people, oh, but it's going to be here. Okay, I'm wrong. It will be here. And it will be 6 to 8. Am I correct on that? Yes. Okay. So during the workshops, we talk through things. People do presentations. We'll be getting feedback information, probably from the folks over at the table here, different ideas. There isn't public comment, but I would encourage people to come and learn so you know what is happening. And then, like you said, Lisa, the next week on the 14th, Valentine's Day, will be our board meeting, which will just be our typical business board meeting. So there will be public comments to sign up for that one as well. And we do have one coming up this month.
And we will do our best to summarize what occurred here and put it in a news item so people have clarity on what was accomplished here today and the specific dates coming forth with the workshop and the board meeting.
I have nothing to add. I would say thank you for being here, but we'll stay. I'll hang out up here at least a little bit longer. But thank you all for being here. What's that? Oh, yes, we technically need to adjourn the meeting, right? So motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ryan and Mary Caitlin. All in favor? Thank you. I'll still stay up here, even though we're adjourned.
First time in 8 years. First time ever.
Yeah.